Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Today's video, we are going to be continuing Naruto, The Tale of Two Sages, What If Naruto Was Louise's Familiar, Part 6. As always, if you are new to the channel or if you're a regular and you like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting stats to come out now and in the future. As we go into part 6, I can safely say that we are now entering the halfway point of this story. One that I think is overall unique and different from many other Naruto stories that I think we've ever seen here on YouTube before. Mainly because using the familiar of Zero, it's an anime that I think is really underrated in terms of being one of the more older isekais of the early 2000s, and I feel like it's one that isn't really used all that much. While I do think there are some traits and there are some tropes that probably don't age all too well in terms of quality, I do think that from a structural standpoint, it is an anime that is to be enjoyed, and I would encourage anyone, if you haven't seen Familiar of Zero, to please watch it on your own time in its entirety. While there is a dubbed version of Season 1 is the only season that actually got a dub officially. The seasons that followed in 2, 3, and 4 all are in sub. So personally, I would just suggest watching the whole thing in sub from start to finish. That's just what I do, but that's just my preference. But I do think it is a series that should be enjoyed overall, and it's one that I would like to try to incorporate more into my stories in the future going down the line, since I think there are a lot of cool and unique ways that you can put a spin on this series as a whole. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to get straight into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Since Jiraiya had left, Naruto, now on his own once again, would continue on in his training, hoping to master the new techniques he had gained along the way. Here is a brief list of Naruto's new and improved arsenal. He would have his standard Shadow Clone Jutsu, as well as the Rasengan. But having the extra time to train and work on himself, as he was stuck in another world and couldn't take any missions or do anything in the meantime, he was taught the Shadow Shuriken Clone Jutsu, along with the Wind-style Wind Dragon Jutsu, the Wind-style Rotating Shuriken Jutsu, the Wind-style Chakra Blade Technique, and the Wind-style Air Bullet. Also, he continued to practice with his Sage Mode. This I dub Pure Sage Mode, the Sage Mode used by Hashirama Senju, a form of Sage that is not required in any form of animal, but rather draws its power purely from nature. On top of that, he also had Kenjutsu Mastery. Now, while it's not called Kenjutsu Mastery in Familiar of Zero, as noted in the show, Saito gains a unique skill from the rune that he has on his left hand, the one now held by Naruto, known as the Rune of Gundalf. With this seal on his hand, it was able to boost Saito's abilities when it came to fighting with the sword. On top of that, it also grants the user the ability to use any weapon once the user touches it just once. So, for example, if Naruto were to ever get his hands on, say, a spear, he would automatically know how to use a spear. Now, to take this and apply it literally, based on the show, Saito shows that he can use just about any conventional weapon as long as he touches it just once, that being from using a rocket launcher to using a fighter jet plane. Now, taking this and applying it to Naruto would be of even bigger straits, because this means that Naruto could learn how to use any weapon and the jutsu that goes with it just by touching it just once. and I think you know where I'm going with this for near the future. But also on top of that, the sword is also a bigger part of Naruto's ability. Because of the power of the ruin, it gives the user almost an unlimited amount of knowledge and understanding in the way of sword arts. It doesn't mean that Naruto wouldn't want to train with using the sword, but it just means that it'll just come easier to him, more easier than it would have originally. He would also still retain his power over the draw on some of the Nine-Tailed Fox's chakra, but finally we would have to get to his sword, that being Durflinger, the talking magical sword that was used in Familiar of Zero. This sword would have the capability of absorbing magic and chakra via the rune used on Naruto's left hand. Also, Naruto can transfer Durflinger's consciousness to any other weapon as long as it's actually a weapon. So he can transfer his consciousness to a kunai, to a throwing shuriken, or anything along those natures. This would add to overall Naruto's abilities and skills, making him a lot more stronger than in the original story. But Naruto would still be stuck with the main issue of being trapped in another world. And now the situation was starting to grow a bit more dire. For one, Naruto now found himself enthralled on the cusp of war. Queen Henrietta had called upon Naruto as well as Louise as she asked for their assistance, hoping to use their powers to aid in her fight against the country of Albion. Of course, Naruto had no problem fighting, although he did have mixed feelings about it. He questioned still whether or not he should be getting involved in such conflicts. These were the problems of yet another world, a world that he was not accustomed to. And even more so, there was also the moral dilemma at hand. As Naruto had seen from the death of Mr. Colbert, war and violence were not the answer. Sentiments shared by his master Jiraiya, who had returned back to their world after receiving message from Tsunade. Naruto wondered about what he should do. He had been granted this power, a power that wasn't given by chance, and yet he wondered if this were the right thing to do with this power, to use it just to wage war, senseless war, as the two countries were fighting over reasons that Naruto could honestly view as trivial. But when he stopped and thought about it, wasn't that just like the world he had left behind? Wasn't the shinobi world the same? So how could he complain or say anything differently? I guess it simply showed that no matter what world you went to, they all shared similar problems. And when it came to the conflict of war, violence, and peace, that was something that anyone could understand. But even more so, seeing Louise's rather confused face would give Naruto more than enough reason to want to help her. Even if he wasn't fully on board, he still wanted to provide her assistance in any way that he could. But for Louise, she was left with more doubt than anything. Between the two of them, it was obvious that Naruto was the much more capable one. It was obvious to her that she were only coming along because she was technically the master of Naruto. But in all honesty, Henrietta probably would only need Naruto's assistance and not hers. Even if she could have the capability of using void magic, it meant absolutely nothing since she lacked the skills necessary to use it to begin with, only being able to pull off a random spell every now and again, and usually when it was done subconsciously and not through her own volition. Louise had been trying so hard to get stronger. She had been trying so hard to prove to Naruto of what she was capable of. And yet, for some reason, she didn't know why. Why was she trying so hard? Naruto was just a familiar. She was the master and he was the servant, nothing more and nothing less. And yet for some reason, Naruto's opinion of her was all she could think about. Why? Why did it bother her that way? Why did it bother her so much whenever Naruto was blushing and giggling around Henrietta? Why did Naruto seem to be the one thing on her mind? Whenever Siesta was around him, it made her angry. Whenever girls tried to hit on him, it just made her blood boil. And the worst part was, she couldn't blame Naruto's skills on dumb luck. No, he came from a world where he was capable. He could take care of himself just fine. Truth be told, Naruto was probably the strongest one here. Maybe the strongest person she had ever met. And yet, what did that make her? Between the two of them, she was the master, and yet the servant was stronger, capable, much more confident, much more reliable. Was she really just the zero? Was she really just someone that got lucky? These thoughts plagued her mind more and more, as she started to believe that this was indeed the case. The more she looked at her situation, the more she began to hate it. The more she began to resent it, because deep down, she knew that it was true. She wasn't anything special. Despite being an aristocrat, despite holding on to some great family title, she knew deep down, she was a zero. She did nothing special. She was not important, nor was she worthy. The only thing she did was summon someone who was more talented than her by accident, by pure chance. And now, any type of glory or honor that she got, she knew it would never truly be hers. It was all Naruto. The only thing she did was simply ask and call for him to help. It got to a point where Louise tried to do everything herself, and Naruto could notice this. She stopped trying to boss him around. Not that Naruto listened to everything she said anyway, but now she wasn't even asking him to try to clean her laundry or do anything like that. Louise tried to be more and more independent as time went on. It got to a point that while they were on their mission in Albion, Naruto would pull Louise to the side. He could see that she had been running herself ragged, trying her best to handle everything on her own. As the two dipped into an alleyway, "Louise, what's going on with you?" Shut up. Nothing's wrong with me, I'm fine. You're clearly not fine. Look at you. We're supposed to be on a mission, and you're gonna tire yourself out before we even start. I don't need you to worry about me, Naruto. I'm just trying to help. And who said I needed your help? Huh? I didn't ask for it. If you haven't noticed, I haven't been asking you for a while now. You're big and strong. You can take care of yourself. You don't need me to tell you or do anything. And because of that, I would like the same courtesy. So no, I don't need your help. I don't need your concern. I don't need your pity. I don't need anything from you. So leave me alone. What's the deal with you? My deal? Yeah, you're acting like a real jerk right now, and I don't know why. You think that just because you try to do everything on your own, that it'll prove something. But it won't. If people are there to help you, then you should just be able to take it and accept it. That's easy for you to say, Mr. All High and Mighty. What was that? You heard me. Ever since you've gotten here, it's Naruto this, it's Naruto that. Wow, Louise, you must be so lucky that you were able to summon someone like Naruto. Wow, Louise, where would you be without someone like Naruto? I'll have you know, I come from a very high and prestigious family. I know my capabilities. And I am not going to be defined just by someone that I brought from some other world who doesn't even want to be here. Louise, don't even bother. You think you know me, but I know you. I've seen it on your face. You don't even want to be here. You don't want to be involved in this. And you know what? You shouldn't be. This world, our problems, they have nothing to do with you. So why don't you just do us all a favor and just leave? Leave and go back to wherever you came from. I don't want your help. I don't need your help. I'll prove that I'm not a zero. I will prove that I am not a mistake, and I can do this on my own. Louise turned to storm off. However, Naruto grabbed her arm, not letting her go. Of course, Louise didn't want to make a scene, especially while they were in enemy territory. But at the same time, she tried to pull away from Naruto. Naruto desperately trying to hold on, but Louise, she simply stormed off. Naruto had no idea that she had felt this way, or that she had been keeping all of this bottled up inside of her for so long. He wasn't sure of what he was supposed to say or do, if this was truly how she felt. Eventually, the two would go on to engage in their mission. And well, to say that things could have gone better would have been an understatement. They were supposed to cause a diversion to distract the enemy forces, and it was going well in the beginning. Louise was actually holding her own, until she wasn't. She wasn't able to fully grasp her power, and as such, Naruto had to move in to try to save her. In the midst of the fighting and everything that was happening, Henrietta was leading her forces from another part of the countryside, attempting to take the fight to the enemy. Only things were not going as well as she would have hoped. And if only to make matters worse, it had gotten to a point where even some within her own ranks were starting to lose faith in her leadership, leading to a sudden rebellion. Thankfully, the rebellion was put down, but it meant that their war campaign was going to have to come to an end. And now that the enemy was now close to following on their heels, it was safe to say that unless they had a miracle, things were not going to stand for the better. Henrietta was debriefed on the matter, and she was told that either Naruto or Louise would have to stay behind. The two of them being the strongest fighters that Henrietta could use at the moment. She would need to use one of them to stay back and allow the rest to escape. Of course, Henrietta did not like this idea at all. She didn't like the idea of sending either Naruto or Louise to go fight a pointless battle. However, her advisor would warn that Albion was a country that had an army of almost 70,000, and that those numbers were too great for anyone to make the difference. In the end, the best thing they could do was hope for a distraction long enough for them to escape. As Henrietta thought this over, she knew that she would have to make a decision. Although unaware to her, Louise had been listening from behind the corner. Naruto, in the meanwhile, was waiting with the others as they were attempting to make their escape. As he did so, his talking sword on his back would begin to speak to him. "Why the long face, partner? It seems that girl troubles you." "It doesn't matter, Durf. I assume you would want to stay in this world as well?" "No, I'm bound to my partner's side no matter what. Wherever you go, I want to follow." "Really? You're not attached to this world at all?" "I'm nothing more but a weapon, and I go where I am needed by my master. I have no ties or allegiance to one world or another. And who knows, I'll most likely reincarnate in another world the next. But still, is there something else that's bothering you, Naruto?" I had no idea that Louise felt that way. She is a proud girl, stubborn, but it's obvious that she's only doing what she's doing because, well, she doesn't want to be a burden to you." "A burden to me?" "Naruto, you are probably the most abnormal thing this world has ever seen. You come from a place far different from our own, with traditions and customs that are a lot more stranger, a lot more different. You are capable, You're strong, you're valiant, you're honorable. You are a man of many great qualities. Naruto would start to blush a little bit as his sword was rambling on. Oh, come on, Durf. I'm serious. You're everything that Louise could ever aspire to be. And it's because of that she realizes that she is not. Up until recently, that girl believed in things like family lineage, in title, in the way of the aristocrat. She believed that there were the elite and there were those below. But you prove to be different. You come from a world where you aren't from any noble family or noblemen, to say the least. You come from a world where, as told by you, you came from nothing. However, you worked your way up. You never sought a shortcut, and you were never one to shy away from a challenge. Your perseverance has paid off greatly, and it shows in the power that you wield. Louise, on the other hand, despite those same efforts, does not hold nearly as much talent as you do, and you claim yourself to be a loser. But in Louise's eyes, you are no loser. In her eyes, you are amazing. You are truly phenomenal. You are something out of this world. And because of that, she realizes that in the end, she is nothing more but a summoner. She called a more powerful person to this world by chance. In the end, that is all she is. But she still aspires to be more. And it's because of that she pushes you away. Because deep down, she wants to be seen as someone who could be admirable by you. As Naruto heard these words, it caused him to stop and to think very deeply for a moment. He had to try to understand Louise a lot better, and now, as he was beginning to do so, he was starting to see why she was the way that she was. Why she stopped asking for his help. Why she tried to train and push herself so hard. It was because she wanted to be better, and that was something that Naruto could understand. Before long, Louise would arrive to Naruto. She would tell him that they were going to be leaving out soon, but before they did, she wanted the two of them to go somewhere privately first. Naruto followed her as she took them to a church. Of course, Naruto had no idea of what a church actually was, as that's something that isn't really much of a custom in the Naruto world, but he understood it was a place of religious value. As they arrived, Louise would explain that she had many regrets. She stated that she had never gotten a chance to get married, and even though she didn't really like the idea, she figured if there was a chance that they don't make it back home, she doesn't want to die single. Naruto was not fully understanding where she was getting at. I'm asking you to marry me. Marry? Louise, I mean, we can't do... Naruto, please, can you just give me this one thing? But I mean, it's not that you're not cute, it's just... My partner thinks that you're very cute, actually. What? Oh, yes. You probably wouldn't know it, but when you're sleeping, sometimes he likes to pet your hair. Durf, shut up! What? I'm just telling the truth. Trying to set the mood here. That's enough out of you, you rusty blade. I take offense to that. I aspire to never rust. Louise would look away bashfully. She had no idea that Naruto had felt this way. In fact, she had wished that she could have heard something like this a lot sooner, but it seemed as though now nothing was really going to matter soon enough. Louise explained that there was a certain ritual that they could do. It wasn't anything fancy. There wasn't going to be an exchangement of rings. There wasn't going to be music or anything pompous like that. It was something small, but it would be a symbol of their marriage. Naruto would accept this. As the ritual was done, the two of them would each take a flower inside of a glass. The flower that they both held would glow. As they held each one, it signified the life force of the other. For Louise, and for the flower that she held in her glass, as long as it glowed, it showed that Naruto would be alive and safe and in well hands. And for Naruto, it would do the same for Louise. As the two of them symbolized their union together, Louise would pour both of them a glass of wine. Naruto had never actually been drinking before. Although he had always wondered what the taste of sake would be like, wine could be interesting as well. As they took their sip from their glasses together, Naruto would lean in and, along with Louise, the two would share a kiss. Of course, this wasn't Naruto's first kiss, although that was one secret he was going to be taking to his grave. If he told her, she'd probably never let him live it down. But for Louise, this was her first. And well, unfortunately, she believed it would be her last. As the sun was beginning to set, both Naruto and Louise would make their way outside. As they did so, Naruto would start to yawn, feeling like he was getting tired. Wow, I didn't think I'd be so sleepy, Naruto would say. Well, we have some time before we leave. Come on, sit. Louise sat under a tree as Naruto sat next to her, his head slowly leaning on her shoulder, before eventually his head would be resting on her lap. Oh man, we shouldn't keep Miss Henrietta waiting. Yeah, I know. If something happens, wake me up, okay? I'm just gonna close my eyes. A few minutes later, Naruto would be sound asleep, unaware that he had actually been put unconscious by a sleeping powder that had been placed in his drink. As Naruto was fast asleep, Julio would arrive. So, you've made the decision for him? Of course. He's done so much for me. He doesn't deserve to die in some world that he didn't come from. At the very least, he should have the opportunity to go home, however that might be. Maybe if I pass away, our contract will be undone, and he'll be able to get home in no time. And you're okay with this? A single tear would fall down from Louise's face as she looked up to him. I'm his master, aren't I? It's my job to make sure that my familiar is safe. Please, make sure that he gets to the ship safely with the others. Julio would help, as he picked up Naruto and held him over his shoulders. As he looked back towards Louise, he would simply nod. Naruto's sword would be kept silent, as he understood the direness of the situation. Eventually, Naruto would start to awaken. He would find himself on a flying ship. It was night as they were making their way back. What's going on? Where are we going? We're heading back to the country of Tristan, Naruto, Julio would say. Oh, man, I didn't mean to be out for so long. Where's Louise? Come on, stop playing around. Where is she? Is she sleeping somewhere or what? Naruto, you might want to sit down a moment. Why? What's this about? It's about Louise. She, she won't be with us. What are you talking about? Where is she? Naruto, I need you to stay calm. Where is she? Naruto, I'm going to tell you, but you need to. Naruto rushed over and grabbed him, holding him by the collar. Where is she? She stayed back. What? Albion's army is over 70,000. We can't all afford to stay, so what? You just let her go like that? She's supposed to be your ally. You don't just leave your allies behind. It wasn't my order. So who? Who gave it? It was me. Henrietta would speak as Naruto turned behind her. What? It wasn't easy, Naruto. But why? Why would you let her stay? It wasn't her choice, Naruto, the royal advisor would say as he walked behind the queen. It was my decision. I gave her the choice for either you or Louise to stay behind, to buy our people enough time so that we may be able to escape. And you chose Louise? No, she chose herself. Before a decision could even be made, Louise volunteered. She did it specifically so that you wouldn't have to. Why? Why would you let her do such a thing? Naruto, this decision wasn't made lightly. It was only done so that... I don't care why it was done. Where is she now? Naruto would look towards the glowing flower in the glass, seeing its light starting to flicker and fade. Naruto would close his eyes, focusing. He wasn't the best at sensory, but he could feel enough to know that there was a life force that was fading. Naruto, without any hesitation, jumped off of the ship as he went racing at top speeds towards where the sense was coming from. As they yelled out for him, Naruto could feel his power beginning to amplify, to grow stronger. He moved faster and faster as his emotions began to be riled up. In the meantime, Louise found herself on the other side of a hill. She had cuts and burns all over her body. She could feel her life coming to a close. The side of her leg had been stabbed with arrows, and she could feel her power draining. Although there were a few craters where a few soldiers had been. At least 10,000 had been taken down, her void magic proving to be quite versatile. However, Louise knew that she didn't have too much longer. Maybe a few more shots before they launched their attack again, and she'd be done for. The army was a bit embarrassed. The idea that this small academy girl was able to take out 10,000 of their men was something that they didn't feel they could forgive. No, they were going to see that her life was brought to an end immediately. As the mages prepared their attacks, as the firing squad prepared their archers to launch another flurry of arrows, everyone was preparing for the next volley of assault. Louise weakly holding up her wand. Maybe with a few lucky strikes, she could take out another 10,000 before she perished. However, before she could do anything, the next thing she would hear would be a loud roar. Multi-shadow clone jutsu! With a large puff of smoke, Louise would look behind her as an army of over 1,000 Narutos would come jumping into the air, all of them reaching into their shuriken pouches as they threw out the contents of their shuriken. The army had no idea of what was happening as the metal spikes began to rain down upon them. The 1,000 Narutos yelling in unison. Ninja art, Shadow Shuriken clone jutsu, multi-clone technique. Instantly, the thousands upon thousands of shuriken would multiply before their very eyes, striking them even in their armor and taking them down. In one fell swoop, Naruto had easily taken out over 20,000 of the enemy. As the clones all disappeared, and as the army was now reeling from the assault, Naruto would rush over to Louise as she looked to him. What are you doing here, dummy? And what are you doing here? As she looked into his eyes, she could see that they had turned red with the slits of the fox. His teeth had grown longer, his whiskers more furrow. Even his hands had seemed to protrude claws. Why would you do something so selfish? Well, I didn't want you to die here. You don't deserve that. You deserve to go. That doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to leave you here. Naruto would create a single shadow clone now. The clone would pick up Louise as he instructed it to take her to safety. As she looked back towards him, he looked to her. Don't worry. I'll be back. Durf. Yes, partner. I'm going to need your help. Give me everything. Right. As Naruto readied his sword, the army was reeling once more from the barrage of the clones. You're still standing? Good. I hope you're ready for round 2. Men, do not falter. He is just one man. He cannot take us all down. You want to bet? Multi-shadow clone jutsu. A multitude of Narutos would form as they all yelled in unison. How dare you try to take her away from me? Now you have my fury to deal with. The clones would launch themselves towards the army as the army battled against the multitude of Narutos. The fighting was long and into the night, with the yells of Rasengan, multiple wind dragons flying all about, almost 1,000 at a time, the multitude of shuriken that were thrown, the blades that were slashed. Many would call this day a day of great victory, but for the country of Albion it would be known as the day of their greatest defeat. A one-man army, a man that would go down in history. The boy with the mark of Gandalf, with the ferocity of a fox. He struck down 70,000 with just one blow. As the sun rose, and as it shined brightly, a battlefield that was stained in red, with only one that was the victor. One who stood above them all. A single shinobi, as he sheathed his sword and walked back to his home. This would be known as the Battle of 70,000. A battle that was brought to an end by one man. About a few days would pass following everyone's return back to Tristan. As Louise recovered, she would only look over to her bedside seeing the flower. A flower that no longer glowed. As they were leaving, as Louise had made it back to the rendezvous with the others, she saw the flower The flower glowed a bright red before setting itself aflame and burning. A great deal of negative energy came from that burst. Louise, falling unconscious for some time. Her sisters, as well as those at the academy, they checked on her to make sure she was alright, although she would not awaken. You see, as Louise was unconscious, she would have a dream. In this dream, she found herself in a place of darkness. It was wet under her feet. She felt as she were walking down a maze of corridors, a dim red glow shining forward, although she could not find or see anyone. Until eventually, she came across what seemed to be a cage, with a seal that was reading to keep away. Even though she had never seen this language before, somehow she recognized what this seal meant. As she walked closer towards the cage doors, there would be a large growl as a pawing claw of orange would rattle at the cage, causing her to jump back in fear. "How did you get here?" "Huh? What the? Who?" "I asked you, how did you get here?" "What the? Who? What are you?" "I am hatred incarnate. I am the embodiment of all negativity. I am the Nine-Tails." Louise was petrified. She could hardly see this full creature, most of it being hidden away in the shadow, and maybe that was for the best. If she could see this thing in full view, she knew very well that she'd be too afraid to do anything. As she looked towards, she saw that eye. The same eye that Naruto had, only larger. As she looked into it, she could feel its hatred, its vitriol. A final roar would be lunged towards her, as Louise would awaken from her dream in a cold sweat. She would find herself back at the academy dorm, with no recollection of how she had gotten there. The last thing she remembered was Naruto and his fight. The flower had long since been destroyed, and she feared the worst. As she opened the door and went running, many of the others that saw her would try to check and see what she were doing. Louise, still in her nightgown, would run towards the gates of the academy. Looking out into the distance, she yelled out Naruto's name, yelling for him desperately. Eventually, her sister Eleanor would try to pull her back inside, telling her that Naruto, if the flower was not in bloom, and in fact had been destroyed the way that it was signifying that he had passed. But Louise could not accept this. She continued to yell out desperately for Naruto, yelling and calling for him, begging for him to return. As they tried to pull her away, as Louise's eyes were filled with tears and with sorrow, a figure would come walking in the distance. As he slowly made his way, Louise would look up to see a boy, his clothes tattered and worn, but they still had the display of orange and black. He smiled weakly. Louise would free herself from her sister's grasp as she ran towards the walking figure. He was almost too tired to raise his arms, but there would be no need for him to do so, as she quickly threw hers around his, knocking him over to the ground as the others saw what had happened and rushed over to him at once. "Ow! You know, you're a lot heavier than I remember." Shut up, dummy. You came back. Of course. You're not gonna get rid of me that easily. As everyone would surround them, there would be a strong sigh of relief and one of overwhelming joy to see that despite the odds, Naruto had survived his battle and he had returned back to Louise. However, even in the joy of Naruto's victory, there was still the darkness of defeat that loomed. In the village hidden in the rain, Jiraiya would sadly meet his end at the hands of the Akatsuki, most notably its leader, the one known only as Pain. However, his death came not in the way that you would be thinking. It came when Jiraiya's tongue was removed from his mouth, and as such, the information of the truth of the Nine Tails, it had no longer eluded them. And now, having what they needed, a meeting would be called with the remaining members of the Akatsuki. Pain, Konan, Kisame, Itachi, and Toby, the only remaining members of the Akatsuki. As they had all gathered together, Pain would reveal the truth, that the Nine Tails was no longer in this world, and it was somehow in another dimension different from theirs. Many would begin to talk amongst themselves. However, Pain would silence them, explaining that now they would focus their attention on capturing the remaining tailed beasts. As he looked towards Itachi, he would give him his orders. Itachi was going to be doing some investigating, and to do this, he was going to be making a long overdue trip back home. This concludes What If Naruto Was Louise's Familiar? Naruto, The Tale of Two Sages, Part 6. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcasting that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue My Hero Academia, The Dark Knight Returns, What If Deku Was Batman, Part 6. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.